Coming up on Talking Points, the U.S. continues strikes across Iran while pressure builds on Capitol Hill. What this means for the future of the Middle East.
And the partial government shutdown drags on. What offer the White House gave Democrats.
Plus, Paramount is set to take over Warner Brothers Studios. What that means for major streaming services, all that and more when Talking Points starts right now. It's day 3 of the launch of a U.S.-Israeli military operation against Iran. Welcome into Talking Points. I'm Alex Burstein.
And I'm Megan Acker. President Donald Trump says the operation is meant to eliminate a, quote, imminent threat, destroy Iran's missiles, and encourage Iranians to overthrow their government.
Iran has since responded with missile attacks on U.S. bases, Israel, and other allied targets across the region. We bring in Talking Points analyst Tegan Brostrom with the latest updates on this conflict.
Thanks, guys. That's right. The war in Iran continues to expand, involving more countries and becoming more complex. Today's attacks from Iran hit Israel and other Arab states. Israel also attacked southern parts of Lebanon. The strikes on Iran began early Saturday morning after attempted negotiations between the U.S., Israel, and Iran over Iran's nuclear program. According to the Iranian Red Crescent, attacks in Iran have killed more than 500 people, and 165 of those people were at a girls' elementary school. Those strikes also killed the Iranian supreme leader, marking a turning point for the nation. He'd led the Iranian regime since 1989. And today, U.S. military said the American death toll has climbed to 6. President Donald Trump spoke to the American casualties and said the war could continue for a while longer.
As one nation, we grieve for the true American patriots who have made the ultimate sacrifice for our nation. And sadly, there will likely be more. Before it ends, that's the way it is.
Now in the U.S., Iranian Americans have taken to the streets across the country to celebrate the death of Alatoya. Participants say they're marching to support the Iranian people and hoping they will now have a chance to be free. Armida Houman, a Syracuse alum and a current research analyst for the National Union for Democracy in Iran, shared how she reacted to the news of Saturday's strikes.
My husband at 2 in the morning, and he was like, the office of Supreme Leader is hit, and I shouted out of joy because it was a depressing month for me and all of my family members. We thought that all these people, all these criminals, all these terrorists are gonna just get away with all that they have done.
Armida did say she has not been able to have recent contact with her family in Iran right now. And now focusing on the national aspect of these strikes, CitrusTV Washington correspondent Ben Bassick joins us from Capitol Hill. Ben, how are lawmakers responding to the U.S. joint strikes in Iran? And are they taking steps to reel in the president's wartime powers?
Yeah, Tegan, the GOP has come out and pretty much agreed with the president's actions in the region, saying that the Iranian regime has threatened Americans and our allies for the past couple centuries. Now, Democrats are coming out and saying this all comes at the cost of the American taxpayer. It's endangering U.S. troops, and most of all, the president did not seek congressional authority before these strikes took place over the weekend. We saw Senator Chuck Schumer come forward and say he plans to force a vote to the floor early this week. That would essentially require the president to come back and get that congressional approval through the bipartisan War Powers Resolution. We saw Congressman Mannion come out with a statement questioning kind of what the strategy looks like in the region and what victory actually entails for the U.S. in this situation. Now, unlike in Venezuela, the president did brief the Gain of 8 in Congress before these strikes took place, and there are ongoing briefings happening on Capitol Hill here throughout the week.
That's interesting. And now U.S. Central Command reports striking more than 1,000 targets so far. Is there concern that other terror proxy groups in the region could retaliate? And what kind of global precedent does this set for other countries?
Yeah, Tegan, I think it's possible. We see groups like Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, and other Shiite-backed militias in Iraq start to target U.S. assets. But I think the bigger question here is whether we're pivoting away from diplomacy, away from kind of that post-World War II world order, and more towards direct military intervention in the Middle East. Historically, we've seen kind of constant ongoing negotiations with these Arab nations and Israel ultimately proposing a two-state solution. President Trump is taking a different approach. And again, this begs the question, what precedent does that set for countries like Russia, like China when it comes to territories like Ukraine and like Taiwan? That's something we're going to have to wait to see, and whether other world leaders start to copy President Trump's view of his own expansive wartime powers. That's all for me here in Washington, so I'll send it back to you guys in studio.
Thanks, Ben. Now, there's no end in sight for the war. President Trump said today the attacks could last 4 to 5 weeks, but he's prepared for it to go longer than that. Back to you guys at the desk.
Ben, thank you so much. Well, to the latest in Venezuela, Maria Corina Machado will return to her home country within just a few weeks. The Venezuelan opposition leader says she is seeking a role in her country's democratic transition. Machado made her first public appearance in nearly a year back in December, emerging from hiding to accept her Nobel Peace Prize. She's reportedly received Trump's support for her opposition movement as his administration works with the acting president and close ally of ousted leader Nicolas Maduro. But Machado's chances of taking over as the country's leader has stalled in recent months, with the White House growing frustrated with her rhetoric. She says that Venezuela could hold new democratic elections in less than a year, a prediction that could undercut the White House's plan in Venezuela.
The Department of Homeland Security has been shut down for more than 2 weeks, jeopardizing airport security, disaster relief, coastline safety, and even pay for members of the Secret Service. Last Thursday, the White House made a new funding proposal to Democrats. A joint statement from Senator Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries said the two Democrats received the White House's counteroffer and are reviewing it closely. No action is expected until, at the earliest, the middle of next week, with the House not voting again until Wednesday.
And right here in Onondaga County, a student-led club affiliated with Turning Point USA is expanding across central New York high schools. Club America chapters have formed at Baldwinsville, Cicero North Syracuse, Central Square, and Fulton, with efforts also underway to bring the club to West Genesee High School. This is promoting a debate over politics in public schools and student privacy. These conversations played out in multiple community meetings yesterday. Questions were brought up on whether the club operates independently or answers to its national affiliation with Turning Point USA. There's also concerns about discrimination based off of founder Charlie Kirk's ideologies.
Coming up on Talking Points, highly contested Texas and North Carolina primaries kick off tomorrow. Find out where the candidates stand after the break.
Welcome back to Talking Points. Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont and Representative Ro Khanna of Connecticut plan to impose a federal wealth tax on billionaires. The push for a federal wealth tax comes as the idea of taxing billionaires gains ground in Democratic states across the country. While progressives like Sanders have called for this for a long time, many Democrats are just now jumping on board.
The potential California ballot includes a tax that would raise $4.4 trillion in federal revenues without hiking taxes on Americans with a net worth of less than $1 billion. The revenue would be invested to benefit working families, children, and other vulnerable groups. Sanders recently traveled to California to stump for the ballot measure.
Now, in more legislative news, the Supreme Court is scaling back on a federal law that prohibits people who take illegal drugs from owning a firearm. Today, the Supreme Court listened to a marijuana user who had been arrested for being in possession of a handgun back in 2022.
Now, this is the same law Hunter Biden was convicted of in 2024. But based on oral arguments, it looks like the court is going to vote in favor of the user, Ali Daniel Hamani. He successfully challenged this ruling in a New Orleans Circuit Court.
And Austin, Texas is still recovering after a bar shooting that left 2 people dead and 14 injured Saturday night. The alleged suspect is Ndiaga Gianni, who was born originally in Senegal and has become a naturalized U.S. citizen. During the shooting, Gianni won a shirt that said "Property of Allah," and underneath that had another shirt with an Iranian flag on it. Officers shot and killed him following the shooting, but a possible motive remains unclear.
President Donald Trump is causing quite the midterm headache for a New Jersey congressman. Tom Keene Jr. faces the same problem as many other Republicans in the midterm, President Trump. The administration just purchased property in a Republican town for his aggressive immigration efforts. Last month, they paused funding for a new tunnel linking New Jersey and New York, which is crucial for commuters in Keene's district. Like many Republicans in swing districts, Keene, who is running for his 3rd term, finds himself in a balancing act when it comes to how closely to run with the president. So that's a district we're going to keep our eye on.
Lots of districts to keep a close eye on, and some more election news tonight. Senate primary races heating up in both Texas and North Carolina. Early votes still rolling in both of those states, and with the official election day tomorrow, Talking Points analyst Sean Garlock is here to break down what we can expect. Sean?
Thanks so much, Alex. Well, if you're looking for an exact prediction, that's something I can't give you because at this point there is so much craziness going on, specifically in the Texas primary, that we have no idea what to expect from either side. As of right now, for the first time since 1988, according to the WFAA, Democrats are out early voting Republicans. 1.1 million Democrats turned in early ballots against 968,000 Republicans. So a potential swing in the Senate seat may be in store. However, still possibly unlikely, but Democrats still very much looking for that win in the Senate seat because after the 2025 gerrymandering war in Texas, they're looking to protect those seats as the gerrymandered districts decided to attack 5 big spots in the House for Democrats. In North Carolina, however, a little bit more boring. There's a returning candidate, the Roy Cooper, the former governor of North Carolina, heavily favored to take that one for the Dems, and the Republicans, seeing as Tom Tillis retired this past year, Michael Whatley is looking to step up for them. Not so much difference there.
Well, Sean, the trend continues with young Americans moving to cities like Austin and Dallas, the big cities in Texas. So with these changes, is there any chance that we see Texas flip in the general election in coming years?
You're absolutely right, Alex. According to per NBC, Texas has seen a 22% increase in Americans aged 18 to 24 relocating to Texas since 2024. So a lot of those Americans leaned more towards left. So we're not really so sure what we're going to see. However, looking into the Texas map, these counties right here are the ones I want to take a look at, specifically Austin, right in the middle. Austin has seen a huge influx of people relocating to it, as well as Dallas, up towards the north. these two counties are going to be a huge, huge swing piece for Texas, as both of their populations have increased by over 150,000 since 2024. However, there is a very big problem for the Dems, and that is the fact that there is a very divided race. There are two representatives in this one, James Tallarico and Jasmine Crockett, have both been very split. If this possibly goes to a runoff, there won't be any unification of the party, and it could harm them in the long run.
And Sean, it's certainly, if there was any year to be an unconventional candidate, it's this one. So out of all the underdogs, who do you think is most likely to pull off the upset in their primary?
I mean, a lot of times in politics, you don't really expect an underdog to come out of nowhere. However, I mean, we've been seeing it all over with the special elections. Ana Lilia Mejia in the New Jersey special election for District 11 came out of nowhere to win hers. The North Carolina representatives, those ones seem pretty much wrapped up. It's not something that we're expecting to see anytime soon. However, in Texas, Kamala Harris has endorsed Representative Jasmine Crockett. She currently sits at 47% of the vote and is pushing to get that up to 49% to possibly force a runoff, which would force it to go to re-voting without any third-party candidates.
Well, Sean, you've got a lot of names going on over there because there's a lot of candidates running from each of these parties. With those numbers, is it likely for runoffs to occur?
It's almost guaranteed that we're going to see a runoff, specifically in Texas. Once again, diving deep into this map, specifically looking again at Austin and Dallas. These two cities just cannot agree. In the early voting, Dallas very, very heavily towards Tallarico, whereas Jasmine was taking Austin by storm, almost a 77% vote for her there. The Dems just cannot agree, and if it gets pushed to a runoff, it's going to hurt them when it comes to actually voting in the general election. However, Republicans all over the place, they don't know what's going on. They have three nominees, all with less than 40% of the vote. That's Ken Paxton, John Cornyn, and Wesley Hunt. John Cornyn's the current sitting member of the Senate for the Republicans for Texas. So right now, Texas is absolutely going to have at least one, maybe two runoffs. And if only one party goes to a runoff, it's going to be very hard for them to unify their party and push their candidate to the top.
Sean, thank you so much. Definitely some interesting races to keep an eye on. Well, coming up on Talking Points, President Trump ordered all government agencies to stop using Anthropic's AI tech. The company's CEO speaks out when we return. I butchered. Welcome back to Talking Points. President Donald Trump has ordered every government agency to, quote, immediately cease using technology from the artificial intelligence company Anthropic. The AI startup signed a $200 million contract with the Pentagon back in July. The company wanted assurances that its AI models wouldn't be used for fully autonomous weapons or mass domestic surveillance of Americans. The Pentagon rejected the request and sent a deadline for Anthropic to agree to its demands. That deadline passed without an agreement. CEO Daria Amade told CBS News that he wants to work with the military, but only if they address the company's concerns.
The pace of the technology is fast. The issues that arise are few, but very important. Again, we only have two of these: domestic mass surveillance, fully autonomous weapons. We need to have a conversation with Congress to help them understand some of the risks associated with it. Again, this is the most American thing in the world. No one wants to be spied on by the U.S. government. No one wants to be spied on by the U.S. government.
Certainly many questions being raised. Well, a new deal could mean the end of Hollywood or a brighter future. On Friday, Warner Bros. Discovery signed an agreement to be acquired by Paramount, setting the stage for one of the most consequential media mergers in recent history.
The deal was made just a day after Netflix announced it was pulling out of the bidding war. With more on the implications of this deal is Talking Points analyst Sheridan Lee.
Hey guys, Paramount appears to be the winner of a bidding war against Netflix to retrieve all of the assets of Warner Bros. Discovery. Netflix, who hoped to win Warner Bros. Movie studios and their film library, backed out of the deal Thursday, while Paramount wants it all: movies, cable, and news stations. If the Paramount transaction is completed, this will mark the third time that Warner Bros., HBO, CNN, and TNT have been sold to new owners just since 2018. All times this has happened have left the organizations in a long legal limbo period while they get their regulatory processes ensured. Now, there's a lot of mainstream media packed into this deal. The acquisition includes Warner Bros. Film studios, more like HBO Max, HBO, and many of the other cable networks. This is some of the biggest news operations in television, including CNN and CBS as well. And this entire merge creates a roughly $110 billion media empire. This news hits just the week after 60 Minutes host Anderson Cooper announced that he will not be renewing his contract with CBS after nearly 20 years, but his contract with CNN is still in effect. And it's possible that after all this, he could be reporting to Paramount. And it's expected that many layoffs will follow across some of the named platforms as this merger is taking place. Now, over the weekend, a few CNN newsroom reporters and producers have expressed concern to their social media that their newsroom independence could be compromised with Paramount taking over. A company-wide email was sent on Thursday after Netflix announcement from CNN Worldwide CEO Mark Thompson, saying, "Despite all speculation you've read during this process, I suggest that you don't jump to conclusions about the future until we know more. And secondly, let's not forget our duty to our audience. We're still near the start of what's already an incredibly newsy year at home and abroad, one that will culminate with critical U.S. midterms elections, and who knows what else. Let's continue to focus on delivering the best possible journalism to the millions of people who rely on all of us around the world."
Now, thank you for joining us at the desk here, Sheridan. So first, what I want to talk about is that we know that a deal as big as this one with as much of an economic sort of impact is going to need some help from the federal government to get passed along. Now, I do want to ask you about that relationship between Trump and the Ellison family.
Yes, so David Ellison, who is now the CEO of Paramount, his father, actually Larry Ellison, also with Oracle, they're really close with the Trump administration and the Trump family. They're, well, I guess you could say, friendly family friends, but essentially there was some favoritism in this deal. The Trump administration and the White House, including the FCC as well, leaning more towards Paramount than Netflix in this deal, largely related to that personal relationship.
Now, we haven't seen a deal like this probably since Disney and 21st Century Fox almost 7 years ago. Netflix was, as you mentioned, one of the front runners for this deal for what seems like a long time. You're getting a ton of assets. What ultimately led them to backing out of this?
Yes, it essentially ended up being that Paramount wanted more of the company than Netflix did. Netflix wanting the film library and the film studios, but Paramount wanted film studios, film libraries, and the news organizations, streaming services. the entire company mostly. And so that just meant that Paramount was putting up more money for this deal than Netflix was. And Netflix said, yeah, we don't want to take over all of the news organizations, so we're going to back out of the deal. And that's what led them to not take it.
And if you want to put on your corporate hat for just a minute here, with this new ownership taking over, do you think that there's going to be a huge difference in how the company is run? These are major companies that are huge power players in the world economy. Do you think that there's going to be, what direction is the workforce going to go in? What's the company culture going to be like? What direction do you think they're just going to take this company?
It's kind of iffy to say right now. The organization has some kind of conflicting guidelines. They said that they want to try and build more Hollywood standards and also create jobs for people in the media spaces. But they also did say that they're going to cut $6 billion worth of jobs in this industry for parts of the organization and departments that might be conflicting and kind of have similar job titles. So we shall see what that looks like.
Well, Sheridan, thank you so much, and we'll continue to see if that deal does continue to go in the next couple of days.
And coming up on Talking Points, hear why a popular rock band is demanding Trump takes down a video using their song. And we'll be right back. Welcome back into Talking Points, folks. Now, it's no surprises here. The British rock band Radiohead is demanding that the Trump administration take down a promotional video for Immigration and Customs Enforcement that uses one of their songs. The video features a version of the song Let Down alongside faces of people the administration describes as victims of criminal illegal alien violence.
The group stated, quote, "We demand that the amateurs in control of the ICE social media account take it down. It ain't funny. This song means a lot to us and other people, and you don't get to appropriate it without a fight." This follows news of another video facing backlash. An AI-generated TikTok was posted by the White House depicting Team USA hockey players Brady Tkachuk trash-talking Canadians. The player responded saying, quote, "I would never say that. That's not who I am. So yeah, I don't like that video." I feel like we're in a journalism class. Copyright, AI, all the things you're not supposed to do coming back.
Yeah, I feel like this is a conversation that we've had not only in our classrooms, Alex, but we have just a lot with this administration. We've seen this since all the way back in 2016 when Mick Jagger and the Rolling Stones asked him to stop using their songs in his rallies. So it feels like a repetitive thing. We've seen even some artists sign a letter asking politicians not to use their stuff without asking. So it's definitely kind of been a hot button issue for a really long time now.
Yes, very long time. Adele, Neil Diamond, the list goes on. But that's all the time we have for you on this episode of Talking Points. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at CitrusTV News and like us on Facebook. I'm Alex Burstein.
And I'm Megan Acker. Have a great evening, Syracuse.